think we're about ready. We got it. Okay. Welcome everybody to Parshat Re'eh 5782. It is good to learn Torah, especially this time of the year. We're just leading up to the month of Elul, time of Teshuvah, and getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, etc. And the Parsha reflects that, as we'll see. The Parsha begins. Quick summary begins. Moshe is telling the Jewish people, the very first verse, that there's blessing and there's curse. You have the option. It's in your hands whether you're blessed or cursed. It's not like other religions where your fate is sealed as soon as you're born, and you have no upward lateral mobility. You can't do anything about it. If you're blessed, you're blessed, and if you're cursed, you're cursed, and that's just the way it is. That's karma. We don't believe in that. We believe that we have there is a certain degree of predestination, but there's also a very large degree of something called bechira chavshit, a free will that allows us to make decisions, and that's why there's punishment. That's why there's reward. All of these things happen because we earned it, or one way or the other, and that must have something to do with our behavior, which is our free will. Very important principle. That's the very first verse in this week's parsha. As soon as the Jewish people are going to enter into Eretz Yisrael, there are curses and blessings that they'll accept upon themselves. They will try to drive out all of the other nations in the land at the time, because those would be otherwise bad influences on the Jewish people. And we don't wish harm upon anybody, but on the other hand, we also don't want harm upon ourselves. And so we don't want negative influences, and we do have to do whatever we have to do to sort of kick them out of the land if necessary. If they leave on their own account, great. They can live and be well anywhere else. The Holy Land is for the Jewish people, at least at that point. So there's a place that's going to be a special place that's going to be designed for service, and it's obviously talking about Yerushalayim, the Beit Hamikdash, which is not named, not here anyway, and but it's definitely referred to in a lot of ways. There's different laws of korbanot and avoiding idolatry. A lot of mitzvot in this week's parsha, a total of 17 positive mitzvot and 38 negative mitzvot. Like I said, keeping kosher, the list of kosher animals. Last year, when we studied this parsha together, we saw a quick video on the laws of kosher and non-kosher birds. That's available on our YouTube channel for your reference. There's laws of a Jewish slave, firstborn animals, the yom, and then the very end of the parsha, starting with Aser Taser, very popular, very famous verses, because they're read on all of the holidays. Those are the laws of the holidays, of the Musaf, and there's just a lot of mitzvot. I can't even begin to to deal with all of them, but we will. What I'd like to do when we study Parshat Re'eh is at least focus on one mitzvah in great detail, and let's see if we can do that when we do our deep dive into the parsha. That's gonna not go. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can do this a little bit better. Okay. Is that right? Yeah, perfect. Beautiful. Okay, let me share that with you, because that's why we do these things. All right, so I hope you all see the shared screen now. We're going to start today our class with chapter 12, verses 4 and 5. Chapter 12, verses 4 and 5, Yud Bet, Dalet, and Hey. And after a quick synopsis of what was been happening, as I said before, the Jewish people were warned to destroy all of the avodah zarah, all of the idol worship that was happening in the land at the time, and they needed to take care of it. and they needed to destroy the names and any kind of lists and any possible reference to idols needed to be eradicated from the land. And then the verse says, and this is chapter 12, verse 4, it says, Lo tasun kain la Hashem Elokechem. Don't do this to Hashem your God. Don't do this. Okay. Don't do what? Well, we'll see. And don't do this. And then it says, Ki im hamakom asher yivcha Hashem Elokechem, because of the place that Hashem has chosen, meaning, of course, referring to, like I said before, the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, that place that Hashem has chosen, Bikol Shiftechem Lasum et Shemosham, from all of the tribes, that's where Hashem is going to rest his name, L'shichno Tidrushu Ubata Shama, so that basically his name will be established there. And that's where you're going to go. So what does it mean, Lo ta'asu kain? Don't do like this. A moment, let me just make a bracha. Okay, it says Lo ta'asu kain. Don't do like this. Rashi tells us on the spot, Lahaktir l'shamayim mikol makom ki im b'makom asher yivchar. So don't do this means to don't just place your offerings wherever you want to, as idolaters do, and as you did up until now. But when the Beit HaMikdash is built, the only place where you can do these sacrifices is in the Beit HaMikdash. There's another opinion, another ashara l'mochek et Hashem, that don't do like this is a warning not to destroy Hashem's name. Shem, name, and to give examples, etc. And that's what I'd like to speak about in terms of halacha today. I'd like to focus on one halacha if we can. And the halacha I'd like to focus on, we don't really have an opportunity usually to talk about these things, but it's an important halacha, and it's created entire almost industries. It's worth knowing what we're doing. It's the halacha of Shemot. We are very careful about not erasing Hashem's name. So you can ask, how do we do it? How not to do it? Those kinds of questions become very relevant. A lot of people are very confused, and they save everything that's Jewish. They save and they bring to shul, and then the geniza gets filled up. This sort of like a collection of books and manuscripts and everything else gets filled up in the shul. And before long, you don't know what to do with all this stuff. So let's begin by saying it. Most important thing is we're not allowed to erase Hashem's name. So if you've written Hashem's name by hand on a piece of paper, and one of the like I think 7 or so names, the Shem Havaya, which is a Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey name, Adnut, that's Aleph Dalud Nun and Yud name, Kel, which is Aleph and Lamed, Elokah, Elokim, all of those should not be erased unless you're talking about other gods, in which case you would say Elohim with a Hey, not a problem. And you can even write that down, and it's not considered Shemot, obviously. We're talking about other gods, imaginary, false gods. We should make that very clear. The Shin and Daled and Yud name of Hashem, sometimes pronounced Shakai, when you don't want to say Hashem's name, which is found in the mezuzot and the tefillin, etc. Another name is what is usually translated in English as legions or tzvakot, which is spelled without a kuf. It's spelled with an aleph, a tzadi bet, and then aleph vav tet. So tough. So tzvakot, so which usually translated as legions. That's also one of the names of Hashem that you should not erase. You should be careful about, and a lot of people don't know that. So already we're getting some information here. But most importantly, a lot of people make a big mistake. They write Elokim and they change the kuf, right? And Elokim from what was a hey, they change it to a kuf, so it's not a him sound, but a kim sound. So they change that, but they make a big mistake because the main part where it says God's name is in the first two letters. The Aleph and Lamed, right? The Aleph Lamed, name of Hashem, pronounced kale, not like the vegetable. Oh, it's pronounced like the vegetable, but it's not the actual vegetable because that's disgusting. Anyway, sorry. Okay, that's my own opinion. A lot of people like kale, but the name itself, you have to put a dash if you're going to write the name on something that might not be treated with proper respect. You need to put a dash between the Aleph and Lamed. All part of this verse. This verse that don't do like this. Don't treat Hashem the same way you treat these false gods. Their names erased. Their names are treated without any kind of respect. So the same thing, by the way, applies to later on, not just Hashem's name, but as I was kind of implying, to documents altogether, books that are about Hashem, for instance. Those books also need to be treated with a certain kind of decorum and respect. They shouldn't be brought into a bathroom. They shouldn't be kept on the floor. They shouldn't be sat upon. When they get old, they should not be thrown out the regular way. They should be, if it does not have. So what is how do you properly take care of these books? So you are, in certain cases, if it does not have any of these names of Hashem that I mentioned. And by the way, there are other names for Hashem, including the English name God, the Yiddish word Eibishter, or any other language's name for God is also problematic, at least for how we treat it. We should use dashes. We spell out God. It should be G dash D, for instance, capital, of course. Other names of Hashem are not considered. Interestingly enough, the Talmud makes a big deal about the name Shalom. Shalom means peace, but it's also one of God's names. And the Talmud makes a big deal. You shouldn't even say the word in the bathroom, is what the Talmud says. And that's brought down in Halacha. You should not indeed say that. But a lot of people have like Shalom written on their doormat, like hello. But it's also Hashem's name, so it's probably not an appropriate thing to write on a doormat where people will be wiping their feet on God's name. Probably not very respectful. But on the other hand, if something has the word Shalom written on it, it does not need to be treated with an extra kind of respect or anything. Interestingly enough, I do not know the reason for that. Why we're not more strict about this, but nevertheless, that is the case. The halachas get intense. Let me just quote a few from more contemporary poskim. We've got different opinions. We have. Let me give you an interesting halacha from Rav Elyashiv. So he, by the way, wrote an entire book on this topic called Ginzei HaKodesh, which like the repository of the holy, I guess is how you would translate that. And he, amongst other things, he says that let's say you have a computer screen. Now you write Hashem's name on a computer screen. Did you write Hashem's name? Can you delete it now? Let's say you used Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, one of Hashem's names. You wrote it on a computer screen. Did you write Hashem's name? So if you know the insides and outsides of computer talk, you know that this is just code. There's just a bunch of zeros and ones, and pixels are lighting up the screen. It's not really writing Hashem's name, and so therefore it's not a problem to write Hashem's name on the screen. It's not considered erasing it if you need to change the word. If you're like writing a great masterpiece, right? And your memoir, and you want to thank Hashem, or you want to talk about some of the lessons you've learned about the Torah, and you write Hashem's name in there. You can indeed erase it and then move it somewhere else, cut and paste. You can take it out completely if you need to. It's not an issue of erasing. It might be worth considering. It might be, he doesn't bring this down. I'm just saying on my own here, it might be inappropriate to just sort of be playing around like that, though. So just be writing Hashem's name on the screen and then erasing it. It's probably not an ideal use of time and resources, and definitely I think is inappropriate for Hashem's name. How about books? I said that there's a special way to get rid of the books. So it seems to be a machloket. Many say that any book that's written like a Tanakh, a Gomorrah or Mishnayot, a Siddur, a book of Jewish law, halacha, a maaser book, all of these, once they become unusable, they should be brought into shemot, which is what our verse is talking about. Shem, the name of Hashem. That's why it's called Shemot. It means names. So they have Hashem's name in them, or maybe they don't necessarily have Hashem's name in them, although Siddur and Tanakh probably do. But they certainly have. They're certainly really about Hashem, and that's the focus of the entire book. So the whole book has a certain kedusha, a certain holiness that needs to be maintained, and so it needs to be treated with respect. And once it becomes unusable, it should be put into shemot and then properly buried when the shemot is buried. That's what usually happens. When our shemot became very, very basically very large collection. The best thing that we could do was I drove it over to the cemetery, and when they had an opportunity, they buried it along with somebody else. It's actually considered a very great thing. Many great people have written in their will that they would like to be buried with books, and that's a great chesed that they do for the community, and also a great zchut for them that they are the kind of people that really respect these kinds of books. The Rambam writes in chapter 6 of Hilchot Yesodei HaTorah, the one who erases one of Hashem's holy names transgresses a negative commandment, from this verse, and that's where the halacha comes from. The Torah and Shulchan Aruch in Yoreh De'ah, chapter 276, that's where at section 9 they say likewise, and many contemporary poskim, as we see, write about these issues, including as we're about to see Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Avadia Yosef in Yechaveh Da'at writes about this. He writes, for instance, some people had a question about whether you can erase. Let's say back in the day, this is old technology. Back in the day, people used to record things on something called tapes, right? So you have a tape that has Hashem's name in it. Let's say it's a recording of, you want to learn how to chant the Haftarah or the Torah reading, and you have Hashem's name in it. Can you tape over that now? Is Hashem's name imprinted on that permanently? And the answer, he said, is no, because it's not writing Hashem's name. It's a recording of a falsification of something. It's not really writing. Rav Moshe Feinstein, in contradistinction to what we just said before about the Gomorrah, Mishnayot, etc., etc. So he says any book of Torah Shabal Peh, that's oral Torah books. So Mishnah, Gomorrah would count as that. Maaser books count as that. As long as they don't have Hashem's name written in them, once they become unusable, he says you can throw them out. But you can have to throw them out in a special way. And this is very true for other objects of mitzvah, including, now we're in the Shemitah year, fruits of the Shemitah year, and including tzitzit when they become, unusable at some point. So the way to throw them out is to put them in the trash, but in a separate bag. So not in the bag with the other refuse, not with the banana peels, et cetera, something that's going to stay clean. And there's nothing dirty about these books. So you put them in a clean bag, and you tie up the bag, and you put the bag together with your trash out. As long as it does not have Hashem's name in it, one of these names that I mentioned before, it doesn't have one of those names of Hashem in it, you can, yes, indeed, throw it out that way. That's what Rav Moshe Feinstein said about Torah Shabal Peh books. Once they become unusable, a book that was never used at all. You bought it, or somebody gifted it to you, and what can you do now? So there's a number of opinions, but one opinion, I think this is the opinion of Rav Belsky, is that you do not have to, you don't have to throw them, you shouldn't throw it out. You should put it in Shemot. Rav Belsky in general was very strict about many of these things. For example, if you have Hashem's name in, say, a newspaper, he was strict in that he required somebody to then cut out any mention of Hashem's name, cut out the whole article, and to put that in Shemot, and not the rest of the newspaper, obviously. So this is more of a problem with the Jewish newspapers that have secular things together with religious things. And if it has Hashem's name, it can be problematic, and that is one of the solutions. That's Rav Belsky's solution, as I said. That
includes newsletter.
If a newsletter has Hashem's name in it, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
If it doesn't, it should be thrown out together with the other respectfully discarded things. Good question.
Thank you.
Rabbi Yisrael Belsky again writes that about recycling. Let's say you want to, okay, I'm not throwing it out, I'm recycling it. It's going to be a cup someday. It's going to be a plate. You know, it's going to be the Chinese are going to build it into a car. Who knows, right? So Rav Belsky says no, you cannot throw out things into recycling. That's considered disrespectful. But these are all just practical ways that these questions come up, and that's normal. And the verse has to mean something, and it means not. And it's interesting. We learned about this last Shabbat afternoon in our Ein Yaakov class. One of the great ideas that we brought up is the idea that Hashem's place in this world today is in the Daled Amot of Halacha. It means in the 4 Amot, in the space that we possess, in the space that we act and behave, that's where God exists. God isn't just some theoretical, interesting intellectual discussion topic. You know, God is present. He's here. And how do we show that he's present? By keeping his mitzvot, by keeping this Torah that we're reading to keep it relevant. You know, there's a verse. It says, "Don't do this to Hashem." So we're not going to do this to Hashem. That's what we do to show how our respect for Hashem. There's a lot of other things, a lot of halachot. You know, people have the prayer for travelers' prayer, tefillat haderech. It's sometimes printed, you know, in the touristy places. It might be written on a keychain. It might be written on some other gadget or something like that, and on a magnet or who knows what. One of those decals that you put on your car. Either way,
okay.
What do you do with this thing now that you're done with it? If you're not using it anymore, can you throw it out? It's not really Hashem. You know, it's not really it's not a siddur. It's not a prayer book. It's just a touristy thing. But if it has Hashem's name in it, you can't throw it out. You can't just destroy it. You have to put that into the Geniza as well, into the book repository. That's amongst some of the other halachot. There's a lot. There's a lot, but I think we skimmed the surface enough to show that we are beginning to have a better understanding, at least, of how to keep this verse relevant and keep Hashem in our lives with these ideas. So now we're going to skip to chapter 13, verse 6. Chapter 13, verse 6, and that is I want to say controversial, but I don't think anything in the Torah should be controversial. But this is the part of the verse of the Torah portion that deals with an issue that the Jewish people have taken very seriously and have sometimes made them the enemies of the people around them, and that's the issue of a false prophet. We know that every religion in the world, true religions and false religions, are started by prophets. And how is that done? usually false prophets. Let's put it that way, right? But necessarily so. No one religion can believe that other people's prophets were true in most cases, as we'll see in a moment. But somebody goes, fishing, hunting out in the mountains somewhere, and comes back and says, I was all alone. I have no witnesses to prove what I'm saying. I have absolutely no reason for you to think that I'm holier than anybody else. But God appeared to me and told me to start a new religion. And that religion is going to benefit me in all kinds of ways. So I can have my own harem, and you have to give me all your money, and whatever else. And this is how most religions and cults get started. There's usually a grain of truth, something they pick up on that the people around them don't like about their current religion, and they'll pick up on that and then hang the rest of their laundry onto that one little line. And we don't go like that. If there's a prophet who says anything that's against the Torah, especially something that encourages avodah zarah, so we will have to we'll have to take action, and the Torah actually tells us that we're supposed to kill such a person. So let's see how this works. Chapter 13, verse 6. V'hanavi hahu, and that prophet, o cholem hachalom, or dreamer of dreams, hahu, yumat, should die, ki deber sara el Hashem elokechem, because he spoke disloyalty against Hashem. Hamotzi etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, who took you out of the land of Egypt, v'hapodcha mibeit avadim, and redeemed you from the house of slavery. So this is your real God. Your real God, who you saw, right? He's talking to the Jewish people who witnessed this, right? At least some of them. They were taken out from Egypt, that they were redeemed from slavery. And this prophet wants to take you off the road, off the path that Hashem has put you on. Your God. God, your God. That he wants you to walk on, and wants you to do bad things, and you need to get rid of this evil from your presence. Now, obviously, this is a terrible sin. This is the antithesis of Judaism, right? Judaism stands for our acknowledgement of godliness, and not just going with the times and, oh, this sounds like a nice new idea. Let's try this. This sounds like fun, or anything else. Or our religion must have been wrong all these years. That's the antithesis of everything Jewish. One of the things we believe in very much is that the people who were alive closer to Mount Sinai, they knew the truth better than anybody else. They had it. They had it tight. They had it clear. And it's our job to stay with it as much as possible. That being the case, one must wonder what exactly is happening here. Why are we killing this person? Is it only because of that, or is there more? So that actually is going to fit into a major machloket, major argument in the Talmud, because the Talmud wonders, how do we kill this person? Right? There are different death penalties. There are different death penalties for all kinds of different crimes. So the Gomorrah in Sanhedrin 89b, you can look this up, or here's the source here in the email that I sent you in the source sheet. Tan Rabbanan, Navi she'adiach b'skila, a prophet who incites others to worship idols or other false gods, is killed by skila, by stoning. Rabbi Shimon Omer, no, bechenek, he's killed by strangulation. By the way, stoning and strangulation are misnomers like you would not believe. The details that the Gomorrah here later on in Sanhedrin tells us about how these particular death penalties were performed make it very clear that there's very little stoning done in actual stoning. It's more of a throwing someone off a wall. And again, it's worth remembering before we start thinking, oh my gosh, this is gross and disgusting. I hate the idea of killing people. We're supposed to hate the idea of killing people. You're right. In fact, the Talmud relates that the death penalty was rarely used. When it was used once in 40 years, that court was called a murderous court by the people. We Jewish people, we are generally merciful, and that's one of our national characteristics. We should not be happy when people die, especially like this. And for this death penalty to work, there needs to be warning. There's a special kind of warning. The person has to know what they're doing before they do it. Immediately before they do it, the witnesses need to come. The witnesses need to be qualified witnesses. All kinds of rules about that. Also, by the way, mentioned in this week's parsha. But so that's the idea. So the Meshech Chochmah wants to know, why is that? Why is there an argument about how they killed, whether it's with skila or chenek? Why does it matter if he dies with stoning or strangulation? U'be'Eliyahu matzanu sheshachet et hanavi habal. We know that in later on that the priests of Baal, when they have their test with Eliyahu and Mount Carmel, we see there that Eliyahu ordered their death, and that was not with strangulation, and it was not with stoning. It was besayif. It was with the sword. So how do you do that? They were false prophets. They were false priests of another religion. Shouldn't they have been killed with one of these two? So tzarech lomar de medin amalchus hargam hahu asa al yedei achav. And the answer is, we have to understand that Eliyahu was not just a prophet. He was also, in a sense, he was a messenger of the king Ahab. Not a great guy, by the way, but nevertheless, he was a Jewish king, and he had the right of life and death. And when you disagree, or when you disrespect the king, you are allowed to be killed in a different way. You're allowed to be killed besayif, with the sword. That's the punishment for disrespecting the king. And so since Eliyahu, as representative of the king, had this challenge with the priests of Baal, he was able to kill them with the sword. The point here is, the reason for the argument about how they're killed is because there's really an argument about what exactly they're doing wrong. Is it that they're disrespecting Hashem, or is it that they're taking people away? They're putting a stumbling block before the blind, causing people to err against their knowledge, against their will. So there's a few things going on here. Where there's a mixture. There's a balance, which is why the Meshech Chochmah is bringing in the story about Eliyahu killing the priests of Baal with the sword. It's because here's another thing that could be going on. The priests could be disrespecting the king and Hashem and the Jewish people. So which death penalty do they get? And that's why, in that particular case, they were killed by the sword. Either way, we need to get rid of this kind of thing, or we'll be in trouble for a long, long time. All right, let's share with you a beautiful thought, if we can, from the Or HaChaim HaKadosh. I always like to bring in a mix of opinions, a mix of thought. So we had some halacha, and we had some beautiful ideas from the Meshech Chochmah, Meir Simcha of Dvinsk. Now we're going to Morocco to hear from our brethren, the Sephardic Chachamim. And what he writes there on this verse, chapter 13, verse 18, the verse says, "V'lo yidbak b'yadcha me'uma min hacherem l'man yashuv Hashem acharon apo." So there is such a thing as an ir hanidachat, a city that is so evil because the entire town has been convinced to worship idolatry. And we've spoken in previous years how such a thing never existed. It's a theoretical. Not going to get into that now. But when you do that, lo yidbak biyarcha, nothing should be in your hand. Me'uma min hacherem, from what was destroyed. L'man yashuv Hashem mechron apo, because you don't want Hashem to become angry. V'natan lecha rachamim, and he will show you compassion, rachamim. V'yirchamecha v'hirbecha kasher nishba la'avatecha, and in compassion increase you as promised on oath from to your fathers. What? Destroy this city, don't take anything, and then Hashem is going to show you mercy. What does mercy have to do with this? What's happening? Why are we focusing all of a sudden on mercy? Mercy. It says mercy twice, by the way, in this verse. It says rachamim v'rachamcha. So Hashem is going to have mercy on you, and you should show mercy. What? We're destroying a city. Men, women, and children, animals, destroying all their property. Nothing is going to be left of the city. There's not a thread of memory left of this place. That's what we're doing to this place. What does mercy have to do with this? Where does that come in? So he says a beautiful thing. He says he learned. He says Kavana ma'amar zeh kan lefi shetzava al ir hanidachat. Shiargu kol ha'ir, you're killing the whole town. Lefi cherav, with the sword. Befilu behemtam, even their animals. Maaser hazeh yula teva achzariot b'lev ha'adam. This will, if you do it the way the Torah tells you to do it, it's going to possibly create a feeling of, what's a good way to put it? A feeling of what's the right word? I'm sorry, I'm missing the word. I'm actually missing the word. I'm not trying to get it from you. I don't remember it. It's going to create a lack of compassion in the person. It's a lack of empathy. And that's going to be in the heart of the person who's killing left and right. Right? This is with the sword. We're not just pushing a button, closing our eyes. We don't know how many people died, right? With like what Russia did to the passenger train today in the Ukraine. We're talking about, literally hand to hand combat. That's going to traumatize the person. Kemoshe sapru lanu ha'ishmaelim kata rotzchim hamar lamelech. So ki yesh lahem cheshek adol shesa shehorgim adam nikrata lahem shorish rachamim hayu alachzar. So he heard this from the Ishmaelim, from the Muslim guards. Remember, he's in Morocco. So from the Muslim king's guards, he heard that they say that when because they have to kill so often, they become desensitized. That's what I've been looking for. They become desensitized to murder. They become desensitized to killing. So that's why this verse is saying it's basically almost like a promise. Hashem will help you have rachamim. Hashem will help you have mercy. Have mercy. Be merciful. Aside from this, do this the way Hashem tells you. But keep in mind that you should have mercy. Hashem will bless you with this the ability to have mercy. This is actually a very important thing in I'll just speak personally here for a moment. There's certain things that I by nature am repulsed by. When I was younger and we were watching a movie and somebody was about to get an injection, I couldn't watch. I had to close my eyes. I couldn't watch. I couldn't watch a needle going into somebody's skin. It drove me crazy. So and in general, I'm disgusted by blood and guts and these sorts of things. When it comes to a mitzvah, and the mitzvah has blood and guts involved, let's say it's cleaning food, cleaning chicken to cook it for Shabbat, right? Washing a chicken or shechting. I don't know how to shecht yet, but when I've been to a shecht house, the Empire Shecht House of 8 years ago, I was not at all bothered by the smell, by the appearance. Nothing grossed me out there because it was all for mitzvah purposes. On a much lower level, let me say it like this. I think I've mentioned it before. I can't stand gefilte fish during the week. On Shabbat, I want gefilte fish. It's a mitzvah. It's different. On the Chevra Kadisha, there are things that I'd be too disgusted by if it wasn't for purposes of a mitzvah. But when I had to dissect a cat in 12th grade or whatever, I just couldn't. I could hardly do it. But when it comes to mitzvah performance, we're given a special kind of strength that allows us to be rachmanim, to have mercy, but to get the job done. And here is a great example. This is obviously much, much more extreme example, which is why it probably never happened. But when you have to wipe out an entire city of people, in such a case, we need to have rachmanut afterwards. Okay. Oh boy. Okay, we have time. We have yeah, we could do this. I'm not worried. Do I look worried? Easy. All right. So chapter 4, we're going to skip to chapter 14, verse 22. And these are, as I said before, these are the verses that are read on holidays, right before Yizkor, on Yizkor days. Aser Taser, the mitzvah of giving maaser. It might not be a coincidence, might be, I don't really believe in coincidence, but it might not be a coincidence that today we learn 2 Mishnayot a day, and today, this morning, we finished Mishnah Masrot. Our shul is experts in maaser now. So the mitzvah of giving tithes, and the verse, chapter 14, verse 22 in Deuteronomy, tells us, Aser taser et kol tevuat zarecha. You should definitely give 10% of all your produce of your seed. Hasadeh shana shana, every year you should give tithes from whatever grows in your field. So there's a promise in the Gomorrah in Tanit Tet Amud Aleph, so 9a, famous idea in the Mishnah, amongst other things. It says, Aser Taser, quotes our verse, Aser b'shvil shetit aser. Give maaser so that you will have what to give maaser from. It's a promise that you will become wealthy and you will be able to give maaser if you give maaser. Ashkehe Rabbi Yochanan the Noka de Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan said to the son of Reish Lakish, he saw him, he asked him a few questions. Amarle, he said to him, Imali psukacha. Tell me something interesting you learned. Tell me a verse. Amarle, he said to him, Aser taser. Amarle, my aser taser. What does it mean? Mas aser taser. Amarle, aser b'shvil shetis aser. Like we just said. Amarle, he said to him, Menalach. Amarle, zil nasi. Amarle, umi sharol nisui lakadosh baruch hu. Can you? It's just, so. Is this something we can test Hashem in? The answer is, don't judge, don't test Hashem. Amarle, so he said to him, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yehoshaya, chutz mizu. This is the exception. With maaser, you can test Hashem. You're not sure if Hashem is going to pay you back for the tzedaka you give. Test him. You can do this. Shnamar, it says, Haviu et hamaaser el beit haotzer v'hi teref lebeiti v'chanuni na bezod Amar Hashem tzvakot. Here, that's one of those names that we talked about earlier. So Hashem tzvakot. Im lo eftach lachem et arubot hashamayim verkoti lachem baracha ad b'lidai. Hashem is going to give you a blessing ad b'lidai. That's what it says. So what's this blessing ad b'lidai? My ad b'lidai. Amar Rami Baracham Amar Rav ad sheyivlu siftotechem milomar dai, until your mouths are tired of saying die. Enough. You'll be overwhelmed with all your wealth. That's the blessing that you'll get from giving tzedakah. Amarle, so he said to him, I havat mate hatam ahai psuka, lo ahavet tzrichna lach lehoshaya rabach. He says that he says to him, you don't really need your rabbi to tell you this, right? It's pretty clear. I'd believe die until you're saying enough. So what are you learning? It sounds like you don't need your rabbi. But two, Ashkeche Rabbi Yochanan Linoka Deresh Lakish Lietev Amar Velet Adam to Salef Darko Al Hashem Yizaf Libo. So quotes a verse in Mishlei. It says, "The foolishness of man perverts his ways, and his heart frets against the Lord." So, in other words, Hashem is yeah. Anyway, so it's what I wanted to bring out from the Uznaim LaTorah of Rav Zalman Sorotzkin about this Gomorrah. Aser b'shvil shetase. He brings this Gomorrah in Tanit. Lo she'acherim yomru alecha she'ata ashir ki she'ein lahem yodim et mitzavta ashrecha. You need other people to tell you if you're rich. Your mouth is you're gonna get so much. You're gonna say enough. I don't want any more. You need others to tell you that. V'rabim omrim alecha gam hayom she'ata ashir. Even until today, people are gonna say that you're rich. Ela she'ata toda v'atzmacha et seret davar zeh mefurash b'Malachi Gimel. So he quotes a verse in Malachi Gimel in the same verse in Malachi chapter 3. It was that blessing that you'd get ad beli dai. So it'd be like all the four heavens are giving you ad beli dai until you're saying enough. Darshu Chazal, and the rabbi said, "Shiblu sifutechem kolomar dai." Your lips will get tired from saying enough. So here's where he comments. Hainu. What that means is shatem ma'atzmechem takiru mibracha mufleget. It means that they will witness such an amazing bracha. Shatash ashartem. They will become rich. They'll become wealthy. Bezuchi ashirut hamitin. This is real wealth. How are you going to know that you have real wealth? What's the sign? How do you know that your wealth is it? You've made it. You don't need to keep up with the Schwartzes anymore. You don't need to keep up with the Smiths. You've made it. You're done. Kamran Hazal, as the rabbis say, Ezuhu Ashir Hasameach Bechelko. Somebody who's happy with his lot. That's somebody who's happy. That's somebody who's rich. Ki mishalo ba hamadrega zu lo yomar dai leolam. And such a person would never say enough. Otherwise, my time, because somebody who has 100 always wants 200. That's why we ask Hashem, open your hand and give us everything we need. We have to pray that Hashem satisfies our eyes. B'kesav zahav. So that with the gold and the silver, because otherwise you're just going to want more and more and more, and we'll never be satisfied. And there's a point where you've had enough. What is that point when you've had enough? When you're satisfied with your lot. That's the blessing. That's the blessing. It's not the blessing that you'll be rich, like everybody's understanding it, like we've been saying all along. The blessing is you'll be rich because you'll feel yourself rich. You will say enough. I don't need any more, because you'll be satisfied with what you have. That's when you've made it. When you don't care what other people say, when you're giving tzedaka and you're living a comfortable life, you're living within your means and everything else, that's when you won't need anything more. You'll be perfectly happy with your lot, and that's how you know that you've made it and that you're rich. All right, last verse for tonight. Chapter 15, verse 10. Chapter 15, verse 10. Beautiful idea that I'd like to share with you from the Magid of Dubno. We haven't had him in quite a while, and his commentary is basically, he usually tells a story, an allegory, an extended metaphor for those of you who are curious, and then he explains the allegory and explains the lesson we can learn from the verse. So the verse says, chapter 15, verse 10. This is still talking about the mitzvah of tzedaka. It says, Naton titain lo, v'lo yirei levavcha, betitcha lo, give and give freely, and don't be afraid in your heart. Don't be concerned about the money you're losing, quote unquote, by giving it away. Ki b'glal hadavar hazeh yivrechecha Hashem elokecha. This is why Hashem blessed you. B'chol ma'asecha v'chol yishlach yadecha. And everything that you've accomplished and everything you've earned from your work. That is the point of your work, is that you can now give away tzedaka and not be stingy about it. Says the Dubno Magid, quotes our verse, and then gives a mashal, gives a story. There's a guy, a dude. He works in the shuk. He works in the market. Okay. The ibed kis imez huvim. He's got a bag of 100 gold pieces. Lamachar chalach b'shuk. One day he goes to the market. Umatza kis, and he finds. Sorry. Let's start over. Ibed. So one day, a guy who works in the shuk was walking home, and he had a bag full of gold, and it broke. The next day, the machar halach b'shuk, he went to the store, matzakis. He found his bag, and he found another bag, and he found 2 gold pieces there. 200, I'm sorry, 200 gold pieces. So he had 100 gold pieces. His bag broke. It all spilled out on his way home. It's gone. You're not gonna find it anymore, right? The next day he goes to the store, he goes to the market, and he finds a bag. He's able to keep it for whatever reason. Not going to get into the halacha now. He finds a bag, and it has 200 gold pieces in it. So you might say, good, I made up the difference, and I got some more, right? It's like a winning streak in Vegas, right? You lose $100 the first day in the casino, God forbid. Just it's good to use as a mashal. You lose $100 the first day. The next day you put your money in the one slot machine and it gives you $200. So you made up the difference. You can leave Vegas a winner. That's what you could do. It's not usually what happens. Anyway, Va'ish Chazal, this person, Gam Shitanachem al Avedato. He's besides feeling some sort of comfort over what he lost, im kol zeh ein lo tanchumim shleimim. It's not a complete comfort. Why? Ki halo yachshov kol hayom tamid. He's thinking all day long. Ki im lo haya oved et hamei azvuchim. If I wouldn't have lost that 100 gold pieces, halo hayu lo ata shalosh mei azvuchim. I would have 300. Right? He could be thinking that. This is actually one of the principles of economics. There's a point to that. All right, the whole idea of the broken window. I'm not going to get into it now. Amnam, we see misha holech tvua makom lamakom. So on the other hand, if you've got a person who's walking around with their grain from place to place, but abed avar derech sudotav, and he's walking along the paths of his field. V'niftach lo sako v'nichpazra tuato ma'at ma'at, and a little bit his grain is falling little by little. Below shehirgish, without him noticing it. Uva rekam leveta, he comes to his house carrying all of his this bag full of grain. He opens up the bag is now empty. Lizman avar b'derech hazeh, then so he might be upset that he lost all of his grain, but then next time he's on that walking along that road, Ra Kitsamcha, it grew. All those grains he dropped grew into other plants now. Now, all that he lost, every single grain that he lost, is now a benefit to him. That person is very happy about his loss. Again, you have the first person who had a loss, who lost his money, who lost 100, let's call it dollars, just to make it simple. He lost $100 and then found $200. So he's in his mind, he might be happy that he's at least not at zero, but he's in his mind, somewhere back in his subconscious, maybe he's thinking about the fact that he could have 300 now. He has only 200 because he lost 100. So he's not really fully comforted, as opposed to this guy who had grain and he was dropping and he lost it all, but really he lost nothing. He gained from all of it. He basically did his work, and now all of that grain has sprouted more grain, and now he's very, very wealthy. So his comfort is much, much greater, right? So what is all this pointing to? You have to see the contrast in these two reactions: the person who dropped the gold and the person who dropped the grain. Because what we have here is we have a mitzvah to give tzedaka. We have a mitzvah to give tzedaka. We have to do it. So where do you get that from? Where do you get that money to give tzedaka from? From Hashem. Hashem gave it to you. So you're going to feel bad. You're going to feel stingy about giving tzedaka to somebody else. That's the money you were given to do that with. There's nothing to be stingy about. You don't have anything to be worried about. That's the lo yireh. Don't be afraid. Don't be worried about it. Lo yireh levavcha betidcha lo. Kim lo natata el ha'ani haya lo yoter. What you're giving to the ani is giving you more. Al ze amar. That's what it says. Lo ken hadvarim ki kol ha'osher haba v'yadka lo barak biglal hadavar ze. All of your wealth was given for this very reason. Ma'amars, it says in Ta'anit, in the Gomorrah, Ta'anit 8, Aser b'shvil shetas. Actually, it's 9. We saw that earlier. So you give maaser in order to get that maaser back. The tzedaka we give, the good that we do in this world, comes back to us 10 times fold, or even more sometimes. And it's even something that we can test Hashem in. And a very important concept in Judaism is nothing to be worried about when you give tzedakah. You're only doing good for yourself and for others. All right, thank you for listening. I wish you all a good night. Gonna stop the live feed to Facebook if there's any questions.